Look at an anthill, and what do you see? Chaos. A frantic, disorganized scramble of tiny bodies. But what if I told you that beneath that chaotic surface lies one of the most efficient, collaborative, and successful societies on Earth? Today on Fun Facts Online, we're deconstructing the unseen hand that guides the ant colony, revealing the secrets behind their super-efficient teamwork. First, let's bust the biggest myth about ants. The queen is not a queen in the way we think of one. She isn't a ruler, a commander, or a manager issuing orders from a central office. Her main job is reproduction. She is the colony's heart, but not its brain. So if no one is in charge, how does anything get done? The answer is the colony's true genius: decentralized power. There is no single ant overseeing the grand strategy. Instead, the colony's incredible intelligence is an emergent property. It bubbles up from the simple interactions of thousands of individuals, each one just reacting to what's immediately around it. This is a system called self-organization, and it's the bedrock of the colony's success. It means they can respond to dozens of challenges at once without waiting for an order from the top. A threat over here, a new food source over there. Small groups of ants can deal with it on their own, and the information flows through the network, not from a single point. This makes the colony incredibly resilient. Losing a few workers, or even a few hundred, is like a massive company losing a few employees. The system is so robust that the overall function barely skips a beat. So if there's no manager shouting orders, how do they coordinate? They talk. Not with words, but with chemicals. The primary language of ants is a complex vocabulary of pheromones. These chemical signals are the invisible threads that weave the entire colony together. The most famous example is the food trail. When a forager finds a tasty morsel, it lays down a pheromone trail on its way back to the nest. Other ants smell this trail and follow it. The more ants that use the trail, the stronger the signal gets, which attracts even more workers. It's a self-reinforcing highway to dinner. But this chemical conversation goes far beyond just giving directions. Different pheromones are like different words and phrases. There are alarm pheromones that scream danger and cause ants to become aggressive and ready to fight. There are pheromones that identify nest mates, acting like a chemical password to keep intruders out. The queen herself releases pheromones that prevent other female ants from laying eggs, ensuring she remains the sole mother of the colony. It's a constant stream of chemical data that allows the colony to think and act with a single, collective intelligence. But it's not just chemicals wafting on the breeze. They also communicate through touch, using their antennae to tap out messages about immediate needs. And some species perform an act called trophallaxis, which looks a lot like a kiss. They exchange regurgitated food from a special social stomach, sharing not just nutrients, but also vital chemical information about the colony's health and hunger levels. In moments of extreme danger, some ants can even make sounds by wrapping their heads or rubbing parts of their body together, creating an audible alert for everyone nearby. Every great team knows that you need specialists. And ant colonies have perfected this through a brilliant and flexible system of labor. Tasks like foraging, caring for the young, building the nest, and defending the colony are all divided up. But here's the amazing part. It's not a rigid, lifelong assignment. An ant's job can change based on the colony's needs. One of the biggest factors is age. Younger ants usually start with the safest jobs inside the nest, like being nurses for the eggs and larvae. As they get older, they graduate to more risky outdoor work like foraging or guard duty. This system, called age polyethism, is incredibly clever. It ensures that the most experienced and also the most expendable workers are the ones facing the greatest dangers. It maximizes the working life of every single ant for the good of the whole. An ant's body shape also plays a part. Big, brawny ants with huge mandibles might become soldiers or specialize in cracking open tough seeds. Smaller, more nimble ants might be better suited for navigating the tiny chambers of the nursery. But perhaps the most fascinating part is something called the response threshold model. Think of it like this. Every ant has an internal trigger level for a certain job. Let's say the task is cleaning up garbage in the nest. Some ants have a very low threshold for the messy stimulus. They can't stand a mess, so they're always cleaning. These are the specialists. Other ants have a much higher threshold. They'll ignore the same mess, but if the garbage really starts to pile up and the stimulus becomes overwhelming, even these high-threshold ants will be triggered to start cleaning. This creates a flexible system with dedicated specialists for daily work and a huge reserve workforce that can be mobilized for urgent tasks or emergencies. The work always gets done. This combination of leaderless command, chemical talk, and flexible jobs allows ants to achieve engineering feats that are simply mind-boggling. Let's look at some all-star teams from the ant world. First up, the leafcutter ants of the Americas. These ants are farmers. They march out in long, organized lines, slice off crescent-shaped pieces of leaves, and carry them back to their massive underground cities. But they don't eat the leaves. They are tools. Inside the nest, smaller workers take the leaf fragments, chew them into a pulp, and use that pulp to grow a special fungus. This fungus is the colony's only food source. They meticulously care for their fungal gardens, weeding out any invading molds and keeping conditions perfect. It's a seamless, agricultural assembly line involving millions of individuals, rivaling our own farming in its complexity. Then you have the terrifying army ants. These are nomadic predators that don't build permanent nests. Instead, they form a living nest called a bivouac out of their own interlocked bodies. At the center of this writhing ball of ants are the queen and the young. Every day, the bivouac dissolves, and the colony marches out in a massive swarm, a living river of death that consumes almost any insect or small animal in its path. During these raids, they perform one of the most iconic acts of insect teamwork. If they encounter a gap in the forest floor, workers will spontaneously link their bodies together, forming a living, trembling bridge for the rest of the swarm to cross. It's a selfless, instant act of adaptive engineering. In the treetops of Asia and Africa, we find the weaver ants. They build their nests by pulling leaves together and stitching them with silk. But adult ants can't produce silk. So how do they do it? It's a multi-stage process. First, a group of workers will grab the edges of two leaves and start pulling. If the gap is too wide, they form chains, one ant holding on to the next, to combine their strength. Once they've pulled the leaves into position, other workers emerge from the nest, carrying the colony's larvae in their jaws. They gently squeeze the larvae, which causes them to secrete silk. The workers then use the larvae like living glue guns, moving them back and forth to stitch the leaves together. They literally use their own babies as tools. Finally, consider the fire ant, famous for its nasty sting. When their low-lying nests are flooded, they have an incredible survival plan. The entire colony, workers, queen, eggs, brood, and all, pours out and links together to form a living raft. They interlock their legs and mandibles so tightly that they create a water-repellent, buoyant structure that can float for days or even weeks, carrying the entire society to dry land. Every single ant is a vital part of this unsinkable lifeboat, a perfect demonstration of collective survival. So how does this all emerge from simple ants just following simple rules? The principle is called swarm intelligence. The collective is far, far smarter than any individual member. A classic example is how ants always seem to find the shortest path to a food source, a famous problem in computer science. When a new food source is found, foragers might take all sorts of random paths back to the nest. But each one leaves a pheromone trail. The ants that happen to take a shorter path will get back to the nest faster. This means they can make more round trips in the same amount of time. Because they're making more trips, they're laying down more pheromone on that shorter path. Very quickly, the pheromone scent becomes much stronger on the shortest route. New ants setting out are overwhelmingly drawn to the strongest signal. This creates a positive feedback loop, and soon almost the entire foraging force is using the most efficient route possible. No single ant needed a map or a GPS. The system solved the problem by itself. This is a concept called stigmergy. It's a form of indirect communication where an individual's action changes the environment, and that change then guides the actions of others. Building a trail, constructing a nest, sorting a pile of eggs. It's all stigmergy. Complex global order emerges from simple local interactions. The incredible teamwork of ants isn't just a fun fact. It holds profound lessons for us. The field of biomimicry, which looks to nature to solve human problems, is obsessed with ants. In logistics and computer science, programmers use ant colony optimization algorithms that mimic the ant's pheromone-based foraging to solve incredibly complex routing problems, like managing a fleet of delivery trucks or routing internet traffic. In robotics, the idea of swarm robotics is directly inspired by ants. Instead of building one huge, expensive, complex robot for a task like search and rescue, why not build 1,000 small, simple, cheap ones? Like an ant colony, this swarm would be incredibly resilient. If a few robots fail, the mission continues, and even the world of business management is looking to the anthill. The principles of decentralized leadership, empowering every individual to take initiative, clear communication, and a strong sense of shared purpose, are all lessons from the superorganism. An organization that functions this way can react faster to market changes, innovate more effectively, and foster a greater sense of engagement from its team. In the end, the humble ant shows us that true strength isn't about individual genius. It's about collective action. It's about a shared goal, constant communication, and a system that empowers every single member to contribute. They are the silent architects of a world built on the unshakable foundation of super-efficient teamwork.